Hello there, and welcome to this special episode of the Star Wars Universe podcast. I'm your host James, and I would like to start by wishing you all a very happy May the 4th. This May the 4th is very special, because we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. As I've documented previously, this was my introduction to the Star Wars universe, so it holds a very special, dear place in my heart. I'm joined this time by several guests, and I'd like to pass over to our first guest, Evan from yodasdatapad.com. A returning guest, it's the owner and editor of yodasdatapad.com. It's Evan. How are you, Evan?
Hi, happy to be here. I'm great.
Good. So we are here to discuss a celebration, everything great about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And yeah, let's get straight into it. What was your first experience of Episode 1?
Well, I had gotten into Star Wars during the special edition re-releases of the original trilogy. And so I've been into Star Wars for like a couple of years. And it started to be really exciting when they started like promo materials came out for Episode 1. Maybe the first thing was I was in the movie theater for a Star Trek movie, and the trailer for Episode 1 came on.
Would that have been Star Trek Resurrection?
With couldn't tell Stewart? You.
I think
it might have been. It was during that period where Star Trek movies were like with the Next Generation. I've always kind of enjoyed Star Trek, but never like gotten around to like really go through it or something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Obviously, you move around quite a bit, and you seem sort of enjoying your traveling. But will you be getting a chance to see it in the cinemas anywhere?
You know, I'm not sure. I actually haven't checked if it's in the cinemas here. I'm in Mexico right now. I should look into that. That might be a fun thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's in the cinemas for certainly the weekend.
Okay.
My local one is only doing it on the Friday, on the 3rd, which is
okay.
The day before this episode comes out. So I'm hoping to go and see it, but it is a working day, so we'll see what happens. It's
I hope you can do
it. yeah, I might try and catch a lunchtime showing if I can. But yeah, no, it's good. So I'm really looking forward to it, and the promo poster for it has been absolutely amazing. I don't know if you've seen it yet.
Oh, no, I've actually been out of the loop. I haven't seen it.
No, it's look it up. Look it up, and we'll get a live reaction from you.
Oh yeah, this must be it. Oh, okay. All right. Whoa. But it's a kind of a similar art style.
Yeah.
And from what they were doing back then, huh?
But a real sort of modernized version. And I love that.
Well, that's really cool. It's nice colors, and they've like set it up real nice.
Yeah, nice. It's an
that's
awesome
cool.
Picture. It's an awesome
picture.
I
like that. Yeah, no, it looks like epic. Like if I was a kid now and I saw that poster, I'd be like, "Whoa, what is that?" Even if I didn't know what Star Wars was.
Absolutely, it'll be a good intro, and hopefully a lot of kids will go and see it. Kids do love those trade routes, don't they?
The Senate, Senate bill to unblock the trade routes.
Vote of no confidence to really hammer it home.
And then to keep the adults engaged, you have like a 35-minute long race scene.
Oh, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to seeing the pod racing again on the big screen. Like it's one of my favorite moments. But speaking of favorite moments, do you have a favorite moment from Episode 1 at all?
That's a good question. I don't know. I wouldn't know how to choose one. I guess not really. I remember getting really into the pod race stuff before too. It was like cool. There was like this whole cast of different pod racers, and there was a little more information on them outside of the movie, and that was really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, no, awesome, awesome. What about characters? Did you have a sort of a favorite character that you took away from that film at all?
I don't know. I guess most people like Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon was
Mm.
my dad was like not a huge Star Wars fan. He was sort of getting a little bit into Star Wars with me and my brother, and he really liked Qui-Gon. He was like, "Oh, that's the character I like." So that was really really cool to me too.
Bit of a gut punch at the end though for him, unfortunately.
Yes,
For
unfortunately. Yeah,
literally
yeah.
for Qui-Gon, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, he's Qui-Gon's a classic character. I think he's
Mhm.
had a huge impact on the overall franchise.
Yeah.
The way they portrayed him as looking at the Force, and it's just that's rippled throughout, and yeah, sort of the living Force
Yeah.
and living in the moment and acting as a Jedi should, really. It's
Yeah.
so yeah, he's a great
Right.
character.
He's simultaneously kind of this wise sensei figure, but also you also see him as the in the same movie as the kind of unruly, undisciplined rebel.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
an
and
interesting thing to mix together like that.
yeah. Well, I think they were very much going for the wise sensei that kind of instead of following the laws of the land, follows the natural laws of the
Yeah, yeah.
land, and so
Right,
naturally ruffles some feathers with the old dogmatic ways of the Jedi at that point in
right.
time. And obviously
But
they
he
were,
more or less, like you said, he more or less ends up being what it looks like the Jedi should have been.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
and that's really highlighted in sort of how the Jedi in the High Republic are portrayed. It's a much
Okay.
more certainly in Phase One and Phase
Uh-huh.
Two. How up to date are you on the High
I,
Republic?
I actually haven't gotten to read
Right.
any of
Okay.
the High Republic, but
Okay. So I won't.
I've been hearing you talk about it. I'll tune in sometimes to the podcast. I've you got me kind of interested, but
Yeah. No.
it's too late
Absolutely.
for me to experience it completely new, right? But
Yeah. No. Absolutely. So
as it's
there's
coming out, but
they do the movie thing with the phases.
uh-huh,
So
uh-huh,
they did phase one, which
right,
introduced a whole load of people, end it on
right,
a cliffhanger,
uh-huh,
and then they go back and tell a story sort of 150 years in
uh-huh,
the past.
yeah, okay,
And then they jump forward to like a year after the end of phase one.
right, yeah. I've
Kind of
been like inputting the books as they come out, or eventually into my the book list on my website. So I've been like, yeah, I've been hearing about them coming out and when they take place, but I just haven't found the time to read them.
yeah, no, absolutely. So the adult novels I would really recommend, as well as
Okay,
the young adult novels. They're really
okay,
good. And yeah, so they're in the very first book, it's called Light of the Jedi. You really sort of
right,
start to see that all of the Jedi have a very specific Force ability, and it's a
okay.
very sort of natural way the Force manifests to that person.
Oh, okay,
And then a whole load of stuff happens, and it very
yeah,
much moves to no, we're at war. So you
yeah,
lose, they start mass producing lightsabers
uh-huh,
and things like that. So
hmm,
you get a lot more sort of the Jedi we recognize from the prequels.
hmm,
Of all the lightsabers, they're a little bit customized, but they're all much of a muchness. They're all very much
okay,
a silver cylinder, whereas the other ones, you've got like broadsword handles, you've got intricate
oh,
hilts and things like that.
uh-huh,
They're
interesting.
really cool. They're really cool.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, it's interesting to see, and I very much attribute that to in universe. Qui-Gon's
Uh-huh,
influence of he would have fit in the High Republic
okay,
very
right,
well.
okay,
Um, so yeah, he very much is sort of led by the Force rather than
right,
using the Force for having a goal and using the Force to get there.
right,
He very
right,
much
right.
sort of rides the
Okay,
currents, as it were. So that's very much what I see as the enduring part of the movie. So
hmm,
I guess my actual
yeah,
next question is what do you think
yeah.
is the most enduring part of episode one across the the Star Wars franchise?
Yeah, I mean, some people say that if you're like showing the movies to someone, you could kind of like skip that one at first because it's kind of slow and different. So I guess in a way it stands out as sort of its own thing, like a prequel to all the other ones. But
Yeah.
to me, I just really loved how kind of rich and colorful the world of the Phantom Menace is. I remember when the sequel movies came out, like The Force Awakens, it was like a fun movie, but I was like, whoa, where are all the like different colorful alien species? There were like some alien species, but most of them had like beige skin, like a white human person, even if they were like a little bit different shape
Or they were all
and
some kind of orange.
yeah, or
It was
orange, something like that. Yeah.
yeah.
And Phantom Menace was just like this super rich. It was kind of like I guess it's kind of like in episode 4 and 6 you have the cantina scene, and then you have Jabba's palace where they're showing like this incredible, colorful, fun diversity of aliens.
Mm.
And then in Phantom Menace, you're seeing that, but they're kind of out in the open. They're not kind of in the underground, marginal places. And
Yeah, and they're actually on
I,
colorful worlds as well, aren't they? So
that's right, that's right. And I think that's sort of what I wanted the Star Wars universe to be. And it also kind of fit with kind of wilder, more fun comic books, and
yeah.
it really felt like it was in that world. And like whatever people say about, I think it's exaggerated, but whatever people say about the movie not being well, the story not being well told or whatever, the movie sticks with me for just being kind of the epitome of what I of the world building that love Star Wars to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it certainly does that. We get a whole menagerie of species and exploration of different cultures in it as well. So
Yeah.
you've got very broad stroke heroes and
Uh,
villains, haven't you? But you've also got the
sure.
nuance as well of
Yeah.
Jar Jar being a reluctant hero, for want of a better phrase, and
Right.
but you've then
Yeah.
got Boss Nass, who's a bit sinister and creepy,
Yeah.
and sort of reluctantly comes round. You've
Yeah.
got all the different handmaidens, and it's just a very and Padme's outfits are obviously being very colourful
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
different. Bit of a striking statement piece with her.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then like you've got the Senate chamber itself, where you've just got
Yes.
all of the different species, including
Yeah.
ET, including
That's right. I
ET.
was thinking that too.
So
Yep. And then there's the Jedi Council is
yeah,
also an example of that. Yeah.
yeah, really, really good example
And the
of that.
pod race, of course. Yeah.
And the pod
Tatooine
race.
in general. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
But I really liked the fact that we got to Coruscant in episode 1, and
Hmm.
yeah, it was really has sort of added a lot to the universe by obviously that was introduced in Heir to the Empire, wasn't it?
I think
Coruscant.
so. Well, yeah, I think the concept came from something even earlier, from like some draft scripts of movies, and then they like fleshed it out a little bit in some of the old West End games, like tabletop role playing games.
Yeah,
But it was Heir to the Empire where they came up with a name for it. They'd called it Imperial Center or something before, and Heir to the
yeah,
Empire said the name of the planet is Coruscant. I'm pretty sure Timothy Zahn, the author of Heir to the Empire, invented that,
yeah. I think he did. I
and
think he
then that
did.
got actually adopted into the movies, which was kind of an exception for that period because George Lucas didn't usually want to have to follow the books or comics or anything when he was making the movies.
No, I always felt he had a little bit of a soft spot for Timothy Zahn and what he did for Star Wars.
Could be, yeah,
I think there was
could
a
be,
level of appreciation of
yeah,
what he did with that trilogy
yeah.
because I think it was in the special edition they actually inserted Mara Jade on the
Oh,
desert sail barge
okay, that sounds
in
familiar. Yeah.
yeah she's just a background character
Yeah, yeah,
much
yeah.
like Quinlan Voss is can be seen in the
Right,
background on
right.
episode
That
1.
was that was definitely Lucas inserting in something he'd seen in the
Well, I think it
comics,
was
right? Or maybe someone else on the crew, maybe, I guess.
I think they dressed this guy up, and
Right.
then they kind of went,
Oh, wait.
"That's a cool character."
Oh, no, yeah. Quinlan was actually a background character in Phantom Menace, wasn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
That's how he originated. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When Jar Jar eats the frog,
Yeah, yeah,
without
yeah.
paying for it, he's in the background
He's in the
watching.
background. That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
And then John and Jen at Dark Horse ran with that and made him into very interesting character.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So there's a lot of good stuff in the that's come
Uh-huh.
from the back of it. But what would you like to see explored more from the movie? So we've got obviously
Mm.
the natural story progression.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people out there will be sort of saying, "Oh, Darth Maul," and kind of we've got that a lot in both Clone Wars, Rebels, and the very end of Solo. Is there anything else you'd like to sort of see explored more? It can be a concept, it can be pod racing, it
You
can
mean
be
specifically now in the new canon?
yeah,
I don't know. Legends, there was so much fleshed out
yeah,
from Legends. I guess in a way I'm kind of happy with them doing new canon stuff that's kind of inspired by some of that stuff, but of course it's fun if they do different things.
mm,
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not that up to date on reading the new canon books. So I know they have done some things, right?
yeah,
There were the books about the young adult books about Padme,
yeah. Queen's
and
Gambit,
yeah,
yeah, those
and
that trilogy.
yeah, I know there's been Darth Maul, a lot of Darth Maul in the animated series, and there's a new book coming out right about the Jedi Council.
That came out a
It
couple of
came it
weeks
came out
ago now.
already.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's really good. It's
It is. You
really
read it already? Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
oh okay. That one is by John Jackson Miller.
It is. Yeah,
I really like him. I've got to read that one.
yeah. No, definitely. That I would bump that up to your next read,
Okay,
or,
okay,
or
okay,
listen however you consume it.
okay. Yeah,
I
I'm
look.
interested in that. I'm curious to see like if how the feeling matches or doesn't match, like kind of the Legends books and comics from that period, because there were quite a few.
There was Cloak of Deception,
There
which
was Cloak of Deception.
is what I was kind of expecting it to be
Okay.
similar to. Obviously, I was
Uh-huh.
expecting a different story, and
Yeah.
but yeah, I was expecting it to be that sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
There are similarities, but
Uh-huh.
only in a good way. That book was
Okay.
dry. Cloak of Deception was dry. It was very, very
I
political.
I got into it, but I know what you mean. I know what you
Yeah.
mean. Yeah.
I I found it interesting and I did enjoy it,
Yeah.
but I kind of put it
Yeah.
down and went, I'm probably not going to read that one again.
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah.
it was a lot to take in. Whereas
Yeah. Yeah.
the Living Force, which is what it's called,
Yeah.
is absolutely fantastic, and
Okay.
they sort of buddy them up. They split the Jedi
Yeah.
Council up a lot, and they sort of buddy
Okay.
them up with each other. It's
Okay.
it's brilliant. It's
Okay.
absolutely
Cool.
brilliant.
There were also some comics that took place during that period. There was the Jedi Council Acts of War, and there was an arc of the ongoing one called the Stark Hyperspace War.
Yes, yes, there
And
is.
those were really fun, but I'm sure I whatever John has written in his novel, I'm sure is going to be like it's very different from that, and I'm looking forward to it.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
It's very different, and it wasn't what I was expecting, as I say, but it was
Okay.
it was
Yeah.
very, very good. Evan, I really appreciate the time you've taken
Uh-huh.
to run
Yeah.
through these questions with me, and we've gone off on some
Yeah.
tangents as is
Yeah.
often
Yeah.
my way. But no, I really, really, really appreciate the
Yeah. No
time,
problem.
and
My pleasure.
yeah, I'll
Sorry, I
catch
don't
up
have a
with
lot
you.
of good answers to the what's your favorite this or what's
No,
your
it's
favorite.
fine. It's fine. It's
I like that movie. It has a special place in my heart.
yeah, no, absolutely. And then there's no right or wrong answer or anything like that. It's
Okay.
very much people's opinions
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just sort of sharing a love of a
Yeah,
film,
yeah.
as you say. So it's
Uh-huh.
but no, I really appreciate the time, and I will throw back to future James.
All right.
Thank you, Evan, for that. As always, always appreciated and good to speak to you. And that is Evan, the host and editor of Yoda's Datapad.com. Go check it out for all of your timeline needs. And our next guest is Hayley Hobbs from Source Pages Podcast. And at last, revealing herself to the Jedi. At last, having her revenge. It's Hayley Hobbs. Hi, Hayley.
Hello, Darth Haley.
Darth Hayley.
I would be a Sith for a while just to see what it's like.
Just for the bants.
Yeah. You get some cool powers. Come on.
Yeah. Sparkle fingers. You can light candles from across the room.
Yeah, yeah.
And everything
Lord of
else.
the Sparkles.
Yeah. Dark Lord of the Sparkles.
This has devolved already into something
Already.
special.
So thank you for coming on to the episode 1 celebration episode.
Woohoo!
25 years of
Yeah.
the Phantom Menace. It doesn't feel like 25 years ago, so I must be old.
We haven't aged one bit. I don't know what you're talking about.
Physically, yes. Mentally, no.
Clearly.
You are on record on episode 2 of the Star Wars Universe podcast as being and I quote, I think, Johnny come lately to Star Wars.
Yes. Sort of.
Sort of. When did you first experience episode 1?
I've been racking my brain to try to remember because I don't think I saw it in theaters. I would have been 10 when it came out, and I do remember seeing the merchandise, especially at Taco Bell. My family would frequent Taco Bell after church. I don't know why. Actually, I do. It was cheap, so why not? So I remember seeing like the big Queen Amidala cut out from the ceiling and stuff like that. And my little 10-year-old brain was like, huh, that looks weird. But my dad, like who would have been the one who took me to movies, wasn't really a Star Wars guy. And so I have zero recollection of a formal viewing of The Phantom Menace. I feel like I must have caught it on TV at some point.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So, I know the answer to this because I think it's on. I think it's on your on our interview in the last episode only a couple of days ago.
Yes.
But will you be seeing it in the cinemas this time around?
I will. And it's not just because we get to see a special peek of the Acolyte afterwards. I think it'll be
I keep
fun.
forgetting that's there.
Oh, that's like my main draw. Yeah, I'm gonna do the whole thing. I'm gonna get the popcorn bucket. I'm gonna get the cup. I'm gonna live like it's 1999 up in here
Absolutely. That's what it's there
with
for.
grown-up money to do that with.
Yeah, obviously.
Definitely going. Took the day off, May 3rd. My husband and I are gonna go. Just have a Star Wars day.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. So, obviously, episode 1, very well-known movie. Do you have a favorite character from that movie?
Is it a cop-out to say Qui-Gon?
Not at all.
Qui-Gon's so good in it. Liam Neeson is so funny. He has these little funny lines that he delivers in his just very serious but yet joking manner. Like I do love him in that movie. It's a shame we only get him for that one. But I think it's Qui-Gon.
Well, we get him at the end of Obi-Wan as well.
Well, yeah, but
Briefly.
for the longest time that was the
That
main
was-
place
yeah.
we see him. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my one quote coming out of that film was the ability to speak does not make one intelligent.
Yep. There are a lot
It's-
of things said in this movie that is like, that's really good advice.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a favorite moment from the film?
I really like at the beginning when Jar Jar takes Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon down to the Gungan kingdom because it's really pretty. Those effects being so groundbreaking at the time, and they still, for the most part, hold up really well, which just goes to show what a good filmmaker George Lucas is and how ahead of his time he was. It's so beautiful. It makes me think of The Lord of the Rings, like when they enter Galadriel's mini kingdom that she has. It's just nice. Of course, then it gets ruined by the Gungans, but upon entry, it's beautiful.
Does it get ruined by the Gungans or does it get made
Depends
better?
on your point of view.
Yeah, Boss
I kind
Nass
of love it. I
with
kind
the-
of hate
with the
it.
face shake.
Yeah.
It's to this day I look at it and go, why?
I don't know.
But they've recently just introduced the Gungans into the mobile game Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and
Oh, good.
Boss Nass is one of the characters. So they're building up to you need all these different types
Sure.
of Gungans to then unlock Jar Jar, the main Gungan,
Obviously. Darth Jar Jar.
and Darth Jar Jar, and and Boss Nass does the mouth shake as one of his moves, and it's brilliant. Like
That's fun.
I live with that game on mute. I can play it anywhere but I always turn the sound on when
Yeah, you
that.
don't want that
Yeah, but
just
no, he
randomly
does.
while you're on the train or something.
Yeah, just
I like that whole sequence. There's always a bigger fish. Like it's
yeah,
just it's fun, and you get a little bit of the stuff that goes over your head as a kid. But Obi-Wan being like, what happens to them on the surface will eventually happen to you. You don't care, and he's like, no, I don't. And Qui-Gon's like, okay, cool. Like we're done here. Can we get out of here then? Like I don't know. It's just it's so true to the characters the way they've kept them too throughout the franchise. So as I was rewatching it, I was like, this is one of my favorite parts of the movie. It's at the very beginning.
yeah, absolutely. So that flows into the next part of. Do you have a favorite part of the movie? Is it the Otogunga scene, or is it something
It's
else?
pretty good. The pod racing scene is iconic
Hmm.
with George Lucas's love for cars and him making that such a centerpiece of the film because of his love for it. It is good. And you get little glimpses of things like Aura Singh, the bounty hunter, just up there watching the pod race, just a little Easter egg that, led to bigger things later on down the road. I think those two are two of my favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah, they are very classic scenes. I think that whole movie can pretty much be described as classic at this
It
point in
really
time, can't it?
is.
I think another classic moment from it, from a personal level, is actually the arriving of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan on the Trade Federation ship at the beginning. Just that the
Hmm.
cruiser coming in and then them being led through by, at that point in time, my brain, a silver 3PO.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yes.
yeah.
The other one.
I think it's TC-14 from memory, but I might be wrong. Someone correct me if I am. But I think that droid's name is TC-14. And you just like, yeah, it just goes from there, the whole thing, and
Yeah.
you start to see the powers that we never knew existed. The only time force speed has ever been used in live action.
Yes.
Um, yeah, there's just
Yeah.
so much in it, so much in it. What do you think is going to be the most, or is the most enduring part of the movie?
Is it wrong to say how memeable it is?
No,
Honestly, when you
absolutely.
think of the Phantom Menace, it's those quotes that people use as memes and GIFs
Yeah,
all the time because it's so quotable and it's so memeable. And in that way, it permeated our culture and really endeared it to people when, the reception to it wasn't super great when it came out, of course, but our generation who grew up with those movies, it becomes part of the fabric of the movie. And as you're watching it, you think almost in memes when they say something, Qui-Gon grabbing Jar Jar's tongue, for example, at
yeah,
the Skywalker's home. And, it's just stuff like that, those little moments. I think that's what makes it so beloved, honestly.
yeah. And there's obviously the classic one that I use quite regularly of Jar Jar with his tongue being numbed by the
Yeah.
pod racer beam, just giving the big thumbs up.
Yeah.
It's yeah. There's so I
It's
guess that
working. It's working. So
so I
good.
guess that leads to a random follow up question, which I haven't put on the list. Which is more memeable, episode one or episode three?
I feel like I see episode one memes more.
Really?
I think so.
Even with my constant spamming of hello there.
If you're counting just hello there, I mean, that one's in a league on its own, right?
It is. It is. Yeah.
But a lot of the memes from episode three tend to be like that, the very beginning and the very end on Mustafar, but Phantom Menace, like you can meme that whole thing and it has so many applications. Are you an angel?
Yeah. It can only mean one thing: invasion.
Yeah. No, there are two of them. I mean, it just like right, it just goes on and on and on.
It
Darth
does.
Maul
It
zooming
does.
over Anakin. No words needed.
Yeah.
Just
Just
like I will run you over.
yeah. Just he didn't even know who he was. He was just like, I'm just gonna kill this kid.
Yeah, he's like, get out of my way. I
Yeah.
think it's episode one.
I think you might be right. I think you've convinced me there because I was so confident going episode three. Episode
I'm
three
gonna
is the
go
memeable one.
through gifts now and we'll see.
Yeah. You have to share
Because
some.
episode two is really just I hate sand and that's it. Can't think of another one, can you?
I think she's doing all right. When we need to help Padme, I think she can look after herself, or whatever Obi-Wan's line is when she's just like
Oh, yeah.
whipping the cat.
Yeah. But not very many. Not as many as the Phantom Menace.
No, no. I do think episode two is certainly the weakest of the three
In terms of
prequels.
memes or in general.
Well, I think in general, I think it's also going to hold up the least because it had so much CGI and early CGI in it.
I
But
really like that one. I have a soft spot for that one.
so do I. It's in my ranking of the saga. Attack of the Clones is certainly top five.
Mm-hmm. Because
But
it's the canvas for the rest of the saga.
well, it gives us the Clone Wars,
Yeah.
or begun the Clone Wars has, I suppose, is a is a meme.
Classic.
A
This is
classic
how
Yoda quote.
democracy dies. That's a good one from number two.
That's in episode
With
three.
is it?
Yeah.
I thought it was at the end when they're all looking at the clones.
No, it's when her and Bale are in
Oh, they're
the
in the
it's
Senate chamber.
yeah, and Palpatine is
I get those
converting
scenes
it to
mixed
an
up.
empire. Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, episode 2 is the least memeable.
it is. I think that's the takeaway from this little segment here.
The most important thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. What is the most memeable thing out there? What would you like to see explored more from the movie? It can be pre-movie, post-movie, something we haven't yet seen.
Well,
What story would you like to see adapted into some form of content?
we've gotten, Padme stuff from the Padme books, so we've covered her pretty well. And we've gotten a lot of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan prequel stuff now. So I'm kind of interested in seeing like a Darth Maul and Sidious, and maybe something exists that I don't know about that's canon or not. Kind of their machination, his finding of Maul and his training of him, and how they got to this point. Well, I won't say that because it's a spoiler, but um, yeah, how did their evil plan, which is really just Sidious's evil plan, come to fruition? Because I think his machinations are always in the background of everything, and I think that would be more fun to explore. I mean, we don't have really anything on that in canon for sure, unless it's in comics that I haven't read, but we could use more of that.
Maybe Son of Dathomir comic, but I think that's more Maul with the dark saber. That
Sure.
time period. There was a couple of things outside that's now legends. I think Darth Maul Shadow Hunter is one
Mhm.
of them, but that's right in the lead up to episode one. Doesn't really go into much of his upbringing. There were stories written, but I don't think anything even made it as far as legends, as it were. I think
Mm,
it was more sort of fan fiction that was then taken and put on Wikipedia as kind of generally accepted lore.
right. I think
Um,
that's a rich area they could mine.
yeah, and just Palpatine's past is I think a lot of people were sort of clamoring for that, and I think they're deliberately holding off until I don't know when, but hopefully they will do it at some point.
Yeah.
Matt Smith ain't getting any younger, so let's get on it, please. Please.
He would be a good young Sheev.
That one's for you, Todd. It wasn't even me this time.
Love you, Todd.
For those who don't listen to source pages, go and listen. Uh, but on our rule of two coverage, we discovered that Todd does not like the name Sheev, and so I was mouthing it at him every single time the name Palpatine was mentioned.
It is
Um,
kind of a gross name. Like, it's a valid thing to dislike.
yeah, oh, completely, and that's kind of why I was doing it.
Yeah, because we're terrible.
We have good banter. But yeah, no, that's a perfectly valid answer on what you would like to see, and I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I would love to see a Darth Maul. Sorry, my brain has just gone to like a angsty teenage series about
Yes,
Darth Maul.
absolutely. That was kind of where I was because I think that makes sense for like how would Palpatine have found him? I don't think raising a child is really in his repertoire. So I think finding an angry Zabrak
It's
from
like
Dathomir,
it's like the biggest rebellion you can ever do, isn't it?
right? Yeah.
What did you do for your teenage rebellion? I joined the Sith.
Yeah. I was supposed to kill my master, but he wouldn't let me. Ugh.
You're not even my dad.
Yeah. You can't tell me what to do. It would be good.
Someone needs to make that.
I
Someone needs
know.
to make that. Like the creators of Smallville need to make that because they made a really good angsty teenage. That's where my brain went. It was
True.
like Star Wars Smallville, but with just Darth Maul.
I think it's perfect.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you very much, Hayley. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and contribute to the episode 1 celebration. And hopefully we will be able to rouse enough people into a celebration worthy of Naboo.
Indeed. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Thank you again, Hayley. It's always great to have you on, and you are always welcome on the cast. Turning to our next guest, we have the returning Josh Hoyt. And my next guest that has very kindly agreed to join me is Josh Hoyt, returning again to the cast. Hi, Josh. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well. So we are recording this middle of April, so it's a little bit before the regular cast and even more before this special comes out. But Josh, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and share your thoughts with me for the very special anniversary of episode 1, the Phantom Menace. 25 years ago. It does not seem like 25 years ago that I was sat in the cinema watching this film.
I know.
It's been a big 25 years for Star Wars and hopefully many, many more to come. But
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe it's almost 10 years since the Force Awakens. I mean, it's unbelievable.
that makes me feel even older. Somehow that makes me feel even older. But yeah, so when did you first experience episode 1, and was it in the cinema?
Yeah, so I was I was my second or third year in college, and my freshman year was when they re-released the original trilogy in theaters. So I had talked about that in a previous episode, but I went with 3 other friends, and we got all dressed up and went to the cinema at our college there. It was like a midnight showing. It was nuts, and it was a blast. It was one of those things where like we left and we're like, okay, when are we going to see that again? So
Excellent.
But I mean, it was like people. I went to a big college. I went to Penn State, and there was hundreds of people just out in the streets like all day. It was nuts, and a lot of energy and a lot of buzz. So
excellent, and it's I think a lot of people sort of associate that sort of cinema experience with very much the sort of middle of phase 2 onwards with the MCU. But to know that was sort of going all the way back and sort of it was a real celebration of like a return to the cinema for Star Wars.
Yeah.
But that obviously segues quite nicely into my next question is, will you be going again?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I already bought tickets. My son and I are going. We're
Perfect.
going on. I don't know if we can actually do it on May the 4th, just because of his baseball schedule and such. But yeah, we have tickets. We're going to go see it. I looked into the marathon where they're offering everything, but it's sold out, and there's only one theater that's within driving distance for me to attend that, but that was sold out.
That's a big commitment, isn't it? The full Skywalker saga marathon.
Yeah, I got the okay to go, but I don't know if 20 years ago I could have done it. I don't know if I could do it now.
yeah, absolutely. You'd either pass out from dehydration or you'd miss half the films, wouldn't you, at this point in time?
Yeah.
There is no in between.
I do like Tobey Maguire, like, oh, my back,
Absolutely. They would need to have an intermission maybe after each trilogy, just so you can go a little half hour, go walk around, stretch out the tired muscles and things like that. But yeah, so actually sort of getting into the film itself, do you have a favorite character specifically from episode 1?
Oh, it's Darth Maul. People that I've talked to everywhere, like, and they asked me like, what's the one thing that you would really love more? It would have been more of Darth Maul, and that's why I loved about the Clone Wars. When that came back, I was ecstatic. But that scene where they're in the palace and that door just opens and he's there is, to me, one of the most iconic Star Wars moments, because the music score, the look, the "we'll handle this" is just brilliant. Like Duel of the Fates is, to me, the best Star Wars score out of all of them. To me, that's my favorite, anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. You've obviously got, I think, probably the main theme and even the Imperial March are possibly more iconic, but for just a straight up amazing song, Duel of the Fates is just phenomenal.
When I'm talking about icon, I'm just saying, like, you take the scene and the music together, and it's just like you hear that song and you see that fight in your head, or if you see that fight, you hear the song in your head. Like they go hand in hand. So
yeah, absolutely. For me, it's that moment, the doors opening in the Palace of Theed, and then in my brain it cuts to the zoom in on each face, Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Maul.
And then the horns hit, you just hear that bum bum, and it's so good.
It's fantastic. So I did actually have three parts to that question of what was also your favorite moment and part of the movie, but I think you might.
That's 100% that. Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say you've pretty much wrapped all of that up into one, which is absolutely fantastic. It's certainly one of the most iconic moments of the movie is that final duel, and I think it really opened up a lot of people's eyes to the capability of not just the actors but the choreograph capabilities of the behind the scenes guys. Nick Gillard being an absolute master of his craft, Ray Park being an absolute master of his craft, and the willingness actually of Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor to put in the time and the effort to learn it. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So what would you say is the most enduring part of the movie, in your opinion?
For me, I would just say for me, and maybe same for you, you always wonder, how did it start? Like what when you watch 4, 5, and 6, you're like, how did he become Darth Vader? And when you see this, and it's this little kid who is afraid to leave his mom, and goes on this adventure and develops these relationships. Like, to me, it's like I always wondered what it would look like, and I've just appreciated how they started it. So to me, it's just that it's how it started everything. It's how it you look at the, for us, we knew as soon as they said Senator Palpatine, you knew exactly who he was. But there are people who don't know that, and like I think of like my kids, like when they watched that in the beginning, and then my son, then when he figured out that was the Emperor, it was like, oh my gosh, when he figured it out that was Darth, like Anakin was Darth Vader, it was like, oh my gosh. Like, whereas we saw 4, 5, and 6 first, so we saw where it went. So to me, like, the enduring pieces is that it created a different type of Star Wars fan than we were, because we knew what happened, and that younger generation saw the beginning, and then those twists were just, to me, was really interesting to watch how people reacted to that. Like, he's the Emperor, oh my gosh, where we were like, oh yeah, let's see how he becomes the Emperor. So that's the way I see it. So
yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I think we are kind of seeing with the sequel trilogy as well. We have seen a whole new generation of Star Wars fans fall in love with Finn, Rey, and Poe, and BB-8 and Babu Frick and all the rest of it. And it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves. And I think especially when we start getting some more content post Rise of Skywalker, so Rey's new movie is going to be very interesting to me, and I'm very much looking forward to that. But what would you like to see explored a little bit more from episode 1? If you could write a story or see a TV show or even a movie around something that was introduced in episode 1, knowing everything that is already out there, what would be your ideal new story?
It's interesting because I thought about this before Tales of the Jedi came out. Like, who was Qui-Gon, and how did he turn it? And Tales of the Jedi really answer that, because I always question like Count Dooku and such. But now and then Clone Wars did it with Darth Maul. But for me, I still would love to see that Darth Plagueis. I would love to see how Palpatine became Palpatine, like a younger Palpatine. I would love to see that, and just to see the how he manipulated and how he became that. Like that's something I've always wanted. So
yeah, and would you fan cast Matt Smith as a younger Palpatine?
100%.
As the internet has already done. It's
yep, 100%.
I think he would be a very good Palpatine, absolutely. But no, that's absolutely brilliant. And yeah, as I say, it's an absolute pleasure to sort of speak to you and get your opinions and thoughts on episode 1. It's short and sweet this time, so I will
Absolutely.
be looking to get you back on the cast for a longer chat. I don't doubt, in the not too distant future, or the next special I do, whichever one comes first. But no, I really appreciate the time. And
anytime.
And I'll pass back to future James. Thanks again, Josh. Always appreciated, and always good to have you on the cast. Our next guest sent in a voice note, and it's Brian Klein from the Source Pages podcast.
To answer your questions regarding episode 1, I first experienced it the midnight showing of the night when it opened, and I'm going to try to see it in the cinema next week when it returns, but there's none around my house now, and since I took this weekend off to go to C2E2, I am not available next week to go out of town for it. And I think my favorite character of the movie, I mean, the pod racing scene is phenomenal. The battle, the Duel of the Fates is great. But I think Qui-Gon Jinn, just his whole overall aspect of it is great. I still love that character. That's why I love the Living Force so much. I think the most enduring part of the movie is the lore building that it does and just the way it sets itself up. I think the main problem it had during its initial release was that people had 15, 16 years from the end of Return of the Jedi to think about what they thought the prequels would be, and it was a complete left turn. Over time, I think the movie has, lost a lot of its negativity around it, and there still is some questions about the acting, but you can't really blame the actors for that when George has already said before he's not a director's director. So, and what would you like to see explored more from the movie? We're getting a little more of the Living Force. I'd like to actually see a little bit more of different places where they go pod racing on different circuits. We just happened to see the Boonta Eve on Naboo or Tatooine, and maybe go around to different places and see different races with different racers. So may the Force be with you.
And a big thank you to Brian for that as well. Always appreciated. I appreciate everyone who takes the time to communicate or hop on a call with me. Turning our attention to Todd, the final member of the Spark Jedi Council. His answers to the questions were: he saw the movie opening weekend in 1999 at the theatre. He will be going to see it on Friday the 3rd of May when it returns to theatres. His favourite moment from the film: he says it's probably cliche to say this by now, but the moment Maul ignites both blades before starting to duel Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. It was the first time I'd seen something like that, and it still sends chills up my spine when I see it even 25 years later. His favourite moment from the film is Qui-Gon telling Obi-Wan, "Your focus determines your reality." Wise words that I try to remember every day. His enduring moment from the film is the master and apprentice relationship between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. We are getting some of that in the Living Force, but I would like to see it on screen somehow. So a young Obi-Wan exploration, which we do get in the books a little bit in Padawan, Master and Apprentice. But so, Todd, if you haven't read those, I would recommend them. All good answers. Looking at my own answers for this. First question: when did I first experience episode 1? I don't know the exact date, but I definitely saw it in cinemas. I went with a friend from school, and we were 11 at the time, and I was absolutely blown away. It was my first introduction to the series properly, and it just hooked me. I've said it before on the cast, but I felt so proud of myself walking out the film at the end, knowing that Darth Sidious was Palpatine. And that just kind of goes to show my naivety at the time about the whole series. I had seen the original trilogy. I hadn't put it together in my head that the Emperor was Emperor Palpatine, and therefore my connection between Sidious and Palpatine was I was actually seeing the Emperor. But I knew this by his chin. That was really all you could see from Sidious. And I walked out and I was trying to convince my friend, no, it's definitely him. It's definitely him. It has to be him. And all these years later, I was obviously proved right. In fact, all those years before, I was proved right. I will be seeing it in the cinemas. At the time of me recording this, I will actually be seeing it today in theatres. It's the 3rd of May when I'm recording this, and I'm very, very excited. I'm very, very excited to go and see this film again and experience it again in theatres. I've only ever done it once since 1999. I went and did a 6-movie marathon, and it gets lost in the shuffle in that, really. Obviously, it's the first one you see, so I am very much looking forward to just going and sitting down with a big bucket of popcorn, probably a cherry Coke or Pepsi, whichever they do, either or, and enjoying it. Seeing that opening crawl again in theatres and seeing all those great moments, all those great characters. I'm really, really looking forward to it. My favourite character from the film, it's difficult to say, really. I would love to say Maul. He's just an awesome character. I love a really well done baddie. Qui-Gon, a classic character. Obi-Wan, obviously an enduring character and has such a massive impact across the saga physically. But I also really liked Anakin as well. I related to Anakin at the time. So he was a kid, and I was like, well, yeah, he's just a kid, and like, the galaxy rests on his shoulders, and yeah, it was great. Moment in the film for me, my favourite moment, it's got to be Duel of the Fates. It's what it builds to, and just the Battle of Naboo, really, the space battle above, the taking back of the palace from the Nemoidians and the Trade Federation, and then the Duel of the Fates itself. It's absolutely fantastic. And I've said it in this episode, it really highlighted the capabilities of choreography at that point in time and how different it was going to be from the original trilogy. Favourite part of the movie is going to be Duel of the Fates. There are so many great moments, as I said, I think in my chat with Hayley. The entry of the Republic cruiser, I love that ship. It's a beautiful ship. The shock when it gets destroyed. There's just so many great moments. The entry to Otogunga is amazing. The travel through the Earth's core to Theed is really, really good. The movie just flows so well, and it's just a brilliant movie. Then going to Tatooine, pod race, that whole section, freeing Anakin, then the entry of Darth Maul, really, where he has a brief battle with Qui-Gon. We get to see Coruscant. I'm just going through the movie at this point in time. It's just amazing, iconic scene after scene after scene. The most enduring part of the movie for me is the understanding of the Force it gave the audience. I think that Qui-Gon's view of the Force is so different from what we had been given by George up to that point in time with the original trilogy, and they'd explored it slightly in the expanded universe, what's now Legends, but really Luke was fumbling around in the dark. He was taught briefly by Yoda. He was taught even more briefly by Obi-Wan. He was figuring it out, and this is really what we were seeing at that point in time in 1999 was the Jedi in their pomp, and what we now see is obviously their pomp is being sort of heralded as the High Republic, and then it's sort of the downward trend from there into a dogmatic religion rather than a sort of flowing with the currents of the universe. And Qui-Gon really embodied that, and that's been explored and has inspired people like Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau to really push the boundaries of what we are exploring and what we're seeing in the Star Wars universe as a whole. So I think that for me is the most enduring part. What would I like to see explored more from the movies? I would love to see some more pod racing somewhere. I would love to see Anakin as a Padawan. Like we see him as an older Padawan. We have a 10-year jump. In Legends, there was a couple of books. He appears in Outbound Flight. You've got Rogue Planet. You've got a couple of appearances here and there, but you don't really have any long-term investment as to what he's actually doing. I think there was a Young Jedi series, thinking about it, which had Padawan Jake Lloyd on the cover. But I think it covered Padawans as a whole rather than specifically Anakin. I would love to see some stuff set between Episode 1 and Episode 2. That's what I'd like to see. Some more pod racing, because Anakin is a racer at heart. He loves racing. He loves going fast. He loves that adrenaline. Look at him. He jumped out of a speeder in the middle of Coruscant in Episode 2. He landed half a ship in Episode 3. He's known as the hero without fear. I just want to see how he gets from Episode 1 to Episode 2. That would be some good stories, I think, and maybe we'll get something this year or next year in the lead up to, or in the next couple of years in the lead up to the 25th anniversary of Episode 2. So hopefully we can see some more stuff like that. But yeah, so I'm very, very excited about where we're at with Episode 1, and I'm very much looking forward to going back to see it. And I would like to take this opportunity again to wish you a very happy May the 4th. It's also Free Comic Book Day, so get out there if you're listening to us on the day, get out there to your local comic book stores and grab the free stuff, but also maybe pick up a couple of actual paying comics as well. Supporting your local comic book stores is very, very important. And if you're a digital comic book fan, they are released about a week later as well, so you can always get the ones maybe they didn't have any more of or whatever. Have a good time. May the Force be with you, and I will see you in the next main episode.